the architect of the arsenal. How Donald Nelson engineered American victory in December 1941. As the smoke cleared over Pearl Harbor, the United States faced a terrifying reality. It had the world's biggest factories, but they were making refrigerators, vacuum cleaners, and civilian cars. To fight a global war on two oceans, America needed millions of rifles, tens of thousands of tanks, and an unstoppable fleet of aircraft. It needed them immediately. President Franklin D. Roosevelt turned to one man, Donald Nelson. Nelson wasn't a general or a career politician. He was a corporate executive, the former vice president of Sears, Roebuck & Co. But Nelson possessed a rare, analytical mind. He understood supply chains, mass production, and materials allocation better than anyone in Washington. Roosevelt appointed him chairman of the War Production Board (WPB), granting him absolute dictatorial powers over the entire American economy. A civilian in a business suit was suddenly tasked with an impossible mathematical equation, rewriting global logistics from scratch. Under Nelson's leadership, America witnessed the most unprecedented industrial transformation in human history. He faced massive resistance from corporate titans, who didn't want to stop making profitable civilian goods. Nelson's response was ruthless and swift. With a stroke of his pen, he banned the production of all civilian automobiles in the United States. He banned skyscrapers, consumer electronics, and refrigerator manufacturing. Every ounce of steel, aluminum, and rubber was reassigned by his commands. Nelson orchestrated a logistical miracle. He converted toy factories into ammunition plants, typewriter companies into machine gun factories, and piano workshops into aircraft components shops. Under his cold, calculated control, the automotive industry was completely dismantled and rebuilt. In Michigan, the Willow Run plant rose from a muddy field into a facility that rolled a B-24 Liberator bomber off the assembly line every single hour. While American soldiers fought in the Pacific and Europe, Nelson fought a war of raw numbers, factory layouts, and raw materials. In early 1942, America hit a catastrophic bottleneck that threatened to halt the entire war effort. Imperial Japan captured Southeast Asia, cutting off 90% of the world's natural rubber supply. Without rubber for tires, tank treads, gas masks, and wiring insulation, the American military machine would simply freeze in its tracks. Nelson faced an existential crisis. He didn't just manage the shortage, he decided to invent a brand new industry on the fly. He gathered competing oil barons, chemical executives, and university scientists into one room. Nelson forced them to drop corporate secrets and patents, sharing everything to create a viable formula for synthetic rubber. He bypassed bureaucracy, fast-tracked the construction of massive chemical complexes, and rationed every civilian tire in the country. Nelson barely slept for months, balancing the chemical formulas of a nation on his desk. By 1943, under his absolute grip, America was producing hundreds of thousands of tons of synthetic rubber from scratch, a scientific and logistical triumph that saved the Allied cause from logistical collapse. But conquering rubber wasn't enough. Nelson had to manage the global distribution of raw materials for the entire Allied alliance. Through the Lend-Lease program, his calculations didn't just feed American factories, they sustained the British Empire and sent thousands of planes, trucks, and trains across treacherous oceans to the Soviet Union. Nelson had to fight his own generals. The US military demanded total control over the economy, wanting to seize factories by force. Nelson stood his ground against the Pentagon, arguing that stripping the civilian workforce would break the industrial machine. He balanced the scales perfectly, ensuring workers had food, housing, and transportation while pushing factories to a breaking point. It was a silent, exhausting war against exhaustion itself. Because of Nelson's precise material balancing, by 1944, American factories were outproducing all Axis powers combined. Donald Nelson never wore a military uniform, never fired a weapon, and never saw a battlefield. His weapons were a fountain pen, a telephone, and production charts. When the war drew to a close, he quietly stepped down, shunning the spotlight and leaving the glory to the generals. The victory of leaders like Donald Nelson was a triumph of sheer organizational genius, economic willpower, and monumental responsibility at a time when the free world stood on the edge of a knife. He proved that wars are won on the front lines, but they are engineered in the factories.